It's really a great pleasure to participate in today's discussion. And what I'm going to present or share with you are how the wellbeing economy is being put into practice, looking at taking it from projects and into mainstream, looking at how it's been taken up in both commercial and business sectors, as well as within health and the public sector. Obviously, now, more than any time in the past, the public, governments, international community have a more focused understanding that health is critical to the well-being, resilience, and sustainability of our societies and economies. People today want to thrive in healthy communities where public health actions and appropriate public policies secure a better life in an economy of well-being. We know this as a background, but I really want to talk about how far we've come in achieving this and to put on the table what we are finding with our work and our partnerships are the co-benefits and the types of approaches that can really drive and sustain an economy of well-being. But before that, I want to tell a story about how far we've come. It's true that countries have come a long way in prioritizing health. However, health continues to be a peripheral concern in mainstream economic policies. When you talk to ministries of finance and economy, if you talk to business, if you talk to the development sector, health is still seen as a cost, which is disassociated from its contribution to the social fabric, resilience, and prosperity of a community or nation. The consequences of that, and this is what the well-being economy really needs to get to grips with, and we as a health community have got to get behind, is that economic decisions on health and well-being have been most often ignored or underestimated. Yet the consequences of this are profound and have ripples across generations and through communities. If I illustrate this by a loss from not taking a wellbeing economy effect, which is very relevant to us now in 2021. But I want to take us back to 2008. At the height of the last economic recession, there was an EU-level decision to regulate labour market and employment with the aim to stimulate the economy through employment creation. And what that meant was there was new jobs created. It was successful from an economic point of view. But 50% of those jobs created were insecure. That means they were temporary, part-time, 0 hours. What we know today as non-decent and unhealthy jobs. And those jobs were not equally distributed, those poor jobs. 80% of those insecure jobs were occupied by those who were already falling behind. That is, those in the bottom 20% in income and education groups who were already living with poor health, living insecure lives in terms of food, fuel, income, and neighbourhood safety. What we saw as a public health community is that 10 years following those changes, there was an increase in mental health problems, particularly for those bottom 20%, and a widening inequities in mental health in most communities. Such that by 2018, those in the bottom 20% income and education groups were 2 times more likely to have mental health problems than those in the top 20%. And there was a gender pattern to this, such that women have much more anxiety and depression disorders, men more suicides, alcoholism, and violence. The economic effects, the effects on families, the effect on wider communities in terms of cohesion, poverty, was huge. And so what we saw then was a potent recipe that led to uneven economic and health development, weaker social cohesion between geographic regions within our cities and towns, plus a higher demand on already strained and under-resourced health services. These are the real issues, the real people that an economy of well-being needs to have in mind so that we keep this real. And that kind of story that I'm telling, which is real, is a potential scenario now. It shows the interdependence of different areas of policy that we can no longer consider separately. And it clearly highlights that economic activity and development policy must be made in service to human and planetary health, which picks up on what my previous colleagues on the panel have been saying about. We've got to deliver improvements and closing gaps in health through investing in public health goods, global goods that enable people to participate fully in life and to prosper and flourish. And that's really the focus of the wellbeing economy. And it provides an approach to shape the economy with the objective of building healthy societies that are just, inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. And what I really want to show in the next very practical examples from the work with our partners and then from our evidence synthesis and our new economic modelling is how this has been put into practice. I'm going to pick maybe different examples than previous colleagues, really to show how economic, fiscal and commercial policies are really picking up an economy of well-being and what the co-benefits are of this. So first example really is if we think about how poor quality, insecure work, as I've just said, unsafe working conditions such as bullying, long working hours, accidents impact health, this has a huge impact on well-being of families, significant others. Likewise, poor health impacts economic participation, social mobility, professional progression, and ultimately business performance. So what I'd like to show is how shared ownership business models, such as those of Mondragon Spain, are charting a well-being economy approach with a win-win for economic stability, business innovation, retention of high-skilled workers, improved mental health, and benefits for social cohesion in the surrounding community. How are they doing this? A Spanish conglomerate, Mondragon, is based in the Basque region, Spain, and they are challenging profit alone business models. They comprise of over 240 cooperatives employing approximately 90,000 employees, all of whom are co-owners and participate in decisions in how the company is run, problem solving, innovation and governance. And what they've proved over a period of 20 years is much better employee mental and physical health, stronger company performance, and sustainable and rich motivated employees. Now, during the 2008 recession, the impact of this business model made them much more resilient than more traditional business models to cope with the recession. There was less unemployment, less dips in profit levels, more stable and resilience of the workforce, and less layoffs. So we see that the model is not just a new idea, it works in practice, it works in good times, and it works in hard times. So that's one example. And we're increasingly seeing this with social enterprises, but also it's coming much more into mainstream business decision thinking because it's good for business, but it's good for employees, and it's good for the economy and society and health. I'd also like to show how ministries of finance are including issues of health and health equity as central in fiscal policy decision making. And I'd like to illustrate this with looking at gender budgeting by ministries of finance, which are a win-win for poverty reduction, women's health, gender equality, and national economic output. Now, across Europe and globally, women are living longer, we know that, but they're often living in poor health and with a greater risk of poverty, particularly post 60 years of age. Now, this comes about because of gendered roles in caring, leading to the fact that many women being in part-time and lower paid employment during their working years because of caring responsibilities. This means that the associated pay, pensions are lower, more insecure, and this is what contributes to the higher rates of poverty risk and poor health of women in later life, and bring with it considerable human family costs as well as welfare costs. Yet finance ministries have traditionally not even considered gender as relevant to their policies when they're looking at fiscal stability and resilience. But through gender budgeting, and Austria is a really good example of that, but it's not the only, including looking at gender and taxation measures, gender responsive employment, caring and pay policies, it's possible to increase women's participation in decent employment by up to 75%. Now, if this is achieved, this would realise the EU 2020 targets, which have gone, but we are still needing to meet. But it would realise 370 billion worth of GDP in the EU, which is 2.8%, of GDP in the EU. So we can see there that fiscal policymakers, when exposed to an economy of well-being thinking with a focus on how health is an investment and delivers different returns, we get a win-win for poverty reduction, women's health and national economic output. Now, we've talked about other sectors, business and finance sector, and maybe just in the last few minutes, what I can also do is to say the well-being economy means that we need to rethink our operating models, rethink the way that we use our existing assets and resources to produce more sustainable, equitable, well-being results. And the health system itself can do that in terms of being a driver of the economy of well-being. It can do that by rethinking how it uses its assets such as buildings, employment, training and purchasing functions for a well-being effect. And let me give you an example. By green energy policies and active transport can improve quality of local air. By providing decent jobs and training, and health systems are often in most countries, both locally and nationally, one of the largest employers in that area, generating human capital. By purchasing goods and services, the health sector is one of the top 20 in the domestic economy for generating jobs and income in other sectors through its purchasing of goods and services. And through investments in health research and technology streams, the health sector supports new employment and livelihood opportunities. And this is key as we are losing sectors now of employment. So the health sector has a real key role to play. And I'd just like to illustrate that more practically, that when this was done in a city region of 1 million population, when 10 local health, community and social providers got together and made a conscious shift to award just 10% of their total budget for contracts going to just local suppliers in a 10-kilometre radius, it contributed 168 million annually to the local economy of that area. And this has a win-win for generating community economic resilience, addressing social determinants of health, and increasing the population's sense of hope and prosperity, because sense of place and belonging and the prosperity of that is key to people's sense of well-being. If I have time, I just want to say two things. COVID has taught us one thing, we knew it before. Trust and participation have now got to be essential capitals to how we manage complex societal challenges, and they are key to what well-being economy interventions need to achieve. And that means approaches that actively engage the population, including those left behind as partners in generating solutions, because these deliver higher trust, more impactful policies and more sustainable results. Three examples are in Ireland, the Men's Health Shed, and they are creating places for men who don't seek help, who wait till it's too late and have advanced health problems, but also are socially excluded and suffer mental health. It's a familiar place for men to come, learn new skills, get access to information, improve their mental health. And the impact of this is showing that men participating in men's health in sheds are entering much more into routes back into employment, vocational training in society. The Gdańsk Social Innovation Lab in Poland is developing and supporting innovation in social solutions to improve living standards for all inhabitants. And this is a mainstream fund for a social innovation lab in Poland. And the Health Justice Partnership in the UK, in Ukraine, in the US, who are putting together primary healthcare and legal services to improve mental health through on-site mental health services, legal support, integrated approaches to support people in managing debt, housing and other legal problems, and as an alternative to just going into the justice system. This is improving mental health, it's improving primary healthcare performance, and it's improving people's lives and reducing costs for the health justice system. To close my intervention today, I'd like to basically say that through the work that I presented today, it picks up on the recent launch of the WHO Pan-European Commission on Health and Sustainable Development, and the Venice office is going to be leading the implementation of that work. This is about taking both a political economy approach to health in macro level financing and economic decisions and processes and mechanisms, but it's also about creating innovation in how we put this into practice. So some of the things that we're doing is we're putting together evidence and practice tools on the how to. As I said today, shown today, drawing on what works from inspiring approaches, setting up country demonstration and innovation labs and solutions for us. We know that good metrics and evidence are important for the co-benefits and the investments and help to guide where we're going to get the best results. So on the 23rd of November, we're launching, with the support of Finland and the UK, Wales, a new economic alliance that will be generating this kind of investment tools to support you as practitioners, as well as us as agencies, to really change the way that the economy works for health. We're convening stakeholders around real-time common challenges, using dialogue-based approaches to creating new solutions. We're doing that initially around tackling the issue of mental health, young people and social exclusion, and then country advocacy and how-to events. And the next one is on the 13th of December, the Global Health Promotion Conference, which I would encourage you all to attend. And I understand that Princess Mary of Denmark has been invited to make an address. So I'd really like to thank you for listening to what we've been discussing on this panel, and really look